Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be taking you through my first ever race. So those of you who've been following the channel for a long time will know that I started out by just racing on Zwift, and now I'm going to be taking on my first ever real life outdoor bike race. So it's pretty exciting for me. Anyway, let's jump straight in. It's not a proper race like with closed roads and stuff like that. It's the city's annual Christmas group ride, but there are prizes, which means that some people are going to be treating it like a race, me included. All right, let's talk about the route. So there's an easy, intermediate and advanced route. The easy route is 99 kilometers with 1,400 meters of elevation gain. The key part of this route is the savage 500 meter climb up to the reservoir. This begins after just 15 kilometers. The medium route is 140 kilometers with 1,700 meters of elevation gain. This route skips the massive climb off the easy route, but has a higher amount of smaller climbs. The advanced route is 185 kilometers with 2,200 meters of climbing and starts the same as the easy route, taking on the big 500 meter reservoir climb, but then goes on for far longer with a lot of smaller climbs after that. I chose the easy route, of course, mainly because I wanted to take on this huge climb right at the beginning, and I also don't think I am up to any of the other ones. The furthest I've ever ridden was 160 kilometers, and that was only with 1,000 meters of elevation gain. So I think the easy ride is about the limit of what I can do while still feeling good about it. Right, let me give you a quick rundown on this beast here. This is what is going to be accompanying me on this ride. This is, of course, my trusty Trek Domane AL3. This is a mid-range aluminium road bike, so about £1,000 here, can't go wrong. So at the front, I'm running my 9 Velo LV45 Aero wheels, and I've got a 25mm GP5000s on there. So on the rear, I'm running the classic Shimano WH-RS370 wheel. This is paired with a 30mm GP5000. So the reason I have a different wheel set on the back is because the hub, which was part of this wheel set, the 9 Velo one, broke, and they still haven't sent me a replacement, so I'm having to make do with this one. There's nothing really wrong with this wheel set, it's just a bit heavier. So you also might have noticed the different tyre widths as well, 25mm on the front, 30mm on the back. So the reason for that is pretty obvious. A thinner tyre on the front means less aerodynamic drag, and a bigger one at the back means more comfort. Obviously that's not true. The real reason is because my other 25mm tyre has a big hole in it and I couldn't fix it in time. All right, let's move on to the drivetrain. On the front, I've got a 5034 Magene crankset power meter here, and on the back, I've got my trusty 9-speed 11-34. So that gives me a 1:1 ratio, which is exactly what I need for the steep climbs. Also rocking the SPD cleats here. Can't really get into the road shoes, don't like them. Say what you will about that. So let's test the weight of this bike. Fully laden, you've got the bike computer, the bike radar, everything good on there. Just about 10 kilograms, 10.003 kilograms. So yeah, like I said, not a light bike. So before the race, I wanted to scope out this massive reservoir climb, and I also wanted to test out my nutrition and hydration strategy. So I did a test ride. This ride was almost the exact same distance and elevation gain off the race. So the aims of this ride were to see how long the reservoir climb would take me, and to see how my legs would feel by the end of that, and also to see how much water and food I need to take with me. Given this is a race and not just a ride, I want to be going hard throughout, so I want to make sure I am properly fueled. I don't want to be running out of any hydration or nutrition by the end of it, but I also don't want to be carrying any extra weight on me, which is unnecessary. On the day of the test ride, it was pretty hot. It was about 25 degrees and it was very sunny. I left my house at about 9 AM, so by the time I got to the climb at 11 AM, it was pretty hot. The sun was beating down. So this is what I brought with me. I had 4 750ml bottles. Each one I put 60 grams of sugar in. The first 2 I carried on my bike, and the last 2 I had in my jersey pockets. The first 2 I put electrolyte tablets in as well, and the last 2 I put caffeine tablets in, just for the end when I need a bit more energy. I also brought 4 SIS beta fuels. I decided to treat myself to a few of these. Normally I wouldn't buy these, I'm just a sort of sugar in the bottle sort of person, but I thought I'd give them a go. So I finished the test ride in 4 hours and 30 minutes with an average speed of 22 kilometers an hour. I have a multitude of excuses as to why it was so slow, the main one being that I got lost. So let's talk about how the nutrition and hydration went. I ended up drinking my first bottle in about 15 minutes. So to be honest, I think I was dehydrated to begin with. In the real race, I'll make sure to chug a bottle of water just before the start, so I'm not drinking from my race reserves. I finished all my water by about 60 kilometers. However, this was when the majority of the climbing had already been done, and it was a very hot day, so I think my water consumption was a bit higher than usual. The real race starts at 6:30, which is a lot earlier than I went. So hopefully it will be a lot cooler and I won't need to drink as much water. I won't be sweating as much either. I did the final 40 kilometers off the test ride with no water whatsoever. By the time I got home, I was definitely feeling very, very parched. I also ate all the gels. I took the last one about 30 kilometers from home. Overall, I felt quite good until the end. The last 30 kilometers I did with an average speed of about 28 kilometers an hour, which isn't too bad when you're in the city and there's lots of traffic lights and stuff like that. Overall, I think my nutrition strategy for the real race will be quite good if I stick to what I did before. I've just got to make sure to drink a lot before the race, and I think I'll be okay. I'm going to stick with 4 beta fuel gels, but I'm also going to take some regular gels as well. These ones have added caffeine, so just in case I need a little extra boost right at the end, I'll take one of these. So the other aim of the test ride was to see how hard this reservoir climb was. I managed to get up to the top in 41 minutes and 33 seconds with an average power of 271 watts. So my FTP at the moment is around 300. So I feel like this was a pretty average effort. The climb began around 2 hours into my test ride, so I can't expect to be able to go at 300 watts after 2 hours of riding. It's just not very realistic. I feel like my pacing for the climb wasn't very good either. I went out definitely way too strong, and by the middle of it, I had to back off quite a lot just to make it to the top. In the real race, I plan to start the climb a lot slower and then build into it. I don't want to be surging to try and keep up with people in the real race. I just want to go up at my own tempo. In the real race, the reservoir climb will start at about 30 minutes into the race rather than 2 hours into it, so my legs should be feeling a bit fresher. I feel like if I can average around 280 to 290, I'll be pretty happy with that. It's worth noting that on the test ride, I was running my gravel knobbly tires rather than the smooth road ones, so hopefully I'll get some free watts there as well. In the real race, I'm going to aim to climb it in 35 minutes. This is a pretty ambitious goal, but using this hill climb calculator, it says it should be doable if I average 290 watts. It really shows how much difference the tires can make. 41 minutes at 270 watts with the knobbly tires versus 35 minutes with the smooth tires at 290 watts. Alright, so let's talk about my training coming into this. The event was only announced about 2 weeks ago, so I didn't really get that much proper training in, but I was on a trainer road block, so I feel like my fitness was quite good. All I did was added this to the calendar as an A event, and then it just decided to give me 1 more week of training followed by a taper. So hopefully coming into this, I should be quite fresh, I hope. Okay, so let's talk about the strategy on race day. So the race starts with a gentle hill, about 100 meters of elevation gain. It's not really anything to write home about, but I'm going to be going all out here just to make sure I stick with a fast group. The easy, intermediate and advanced groups all start at the same time, so getting over this hill with an intermediate or advanced group will be quite good because that'll be all the stronger riders and I can just sit in with them and be very lazy. The groups split at the base of the reservoir climb. The easy and advanced groups go up the climb together, but the intermediate group goes off somewhere else. So if I can get to the base of the reservoir climb with a fast advanced group, I'll be pretty happy. I know that come this hill, I'm probably going to get dropped by everyone, but I'm just going to sit in and do my own pace up this hill anyway. Once we reach the top of the reservoir climb, I will probably be last, but at the top there is a nice bit of flat for about 2 kilometers. This is a chance for me to drink a lot of water, get some food in, because then the descent comes. The descent is about 15 minutes of really nice switchbacks. So this should be a bit fun. I'm not going to go all out obviously here. I do enjoy my life. I don't want to crash, so I'll just be taking it pretty easy, making sure to get my heart rate down and to be fresh for the rest of it. So after the descent, there is about 30 kilometers off nice flat road. And at this point, I'm probably going to be alone. So I'm just going to settle into a nice rhythm, get nice and aero, settle in and just push as hard as I can on the flat. This is when hopefully my raw power should be able to let me catch up with some people. If I can get back with a group, that would be nice. If not, then so be it. So after this nice flat section, there's about 10 kilometers of rolling hills, just a few ups and downs. Here I'm just going to go all out on any of the climbs and then rest on the descents. The climbs aren't particularly steep, but it's still going to take it out of my legs considering it's getting into the end of the race here. This will probably be the point where I start to crumble, but if I'm with a group at this point, I'm going to try my best to stick with them through the hills. But if I manage to get through this bit with a group, I'll be quietly confident for the finish line. The final 10 kilometers is just pure flat. So again, I should be quite strong there. Hopefully the final few kilometers will give me a good chance to make up a few places again and hopefully have a good finish. All I want from this is to try and finish strong. I want to know that I've put everything into this race and that I tried my best. Obviously, I don't expect to win, but who knows, weirder things have happened.
Right, so here we are, race day. 6:30 a.m, the sun is just coming up, so it's a beautiful day here. As you can see, there are quite a lot of people in this race. There are about 60 people, 20 in each category. I don't know who's in my category, I don't know who's in the advanced category, so it's quite an interesting dynamic. Right at the beginning there is already a pretty aggressive climb, 100 meters of elevation gain, it takes about 10 minutes to get to the top. It's a very nice route actually. Most of the roads we were on were pretty quiet. There are a few sections of highway, but those don't come up till later. So like I said, a pretty aggressive start with this hill. I end up doing the first 8.5 minutes at a normalized power of 350 watts, which is a lot higher than I would have liked, but it's worth it to make sure I manage to stick with this group. After that, we have a nice quick descent before being onto the flat bit. I'm feeling pretty good. I just had oats for breakfast, so I should have lots of energy. I made sure to drink a lot of water before this. So yeah, hopefully this should be a good race. So we're on the flat bit now, and no one's pushing really hard here. Everyone's just taking it pretty chill. Everyone knows there's the big climb yet to come, so I think everyone is saving their matches until then. It's pretty chill actually, a nice flat road, very few cars this early in the morning, so it's very nice actually. I'm just trying to get used to riding with lots of people because this is the first time I've ever done that. I'm just trying to make sure I'm not, crossing wheels or doing anything silly. It's pretty impressive how much difference being in the draft makes. I'm sort of just cruising along here, occasionally putting down like 200 watts and going 35 kilometers an hour. Normally to go at this speed I'd have to be putting down a lot of effort, and I'm not even thinking about getting into a low aero position, so this is really quite cool. Right, so here we are, 15 kilometers in. I've had about 20 minutes of chilling with the pack, and this is where the big climb starts. So it's about 500 meters of elevation gain, category 2, and it is pretty tough for me. In training, this took me 42 minutes to climb up. I'm aiming for a bit quicker than that today, so let's see how I do. So this group ahead of me, I was sitting in their wheels for most of this, but I reckon most of them are gonna go out and out-climb me. So this is where the climb starts, just turning off the main road onto this ramp here, and instantly the gradient will pitch upwards. It's 8.3 kilometers with an average gradient of 6%, so it's pretty tough. And as predicted, everyone else is going out much quicker than me. So I know that during the practice ride, I went out way too hard. So I'm going to try to settle in to a threshold power that I know I can maintain for about 40 minutes. Which for me is about 280 to 290 watts. I've had a pretty easy week this week, so my legs should be pretty fresh, so we're going to see how long I can hold out for. So by this point it's about 7 a.m. It's not particularly hot, only 16 degrees, which is actually very nice. Good weather for climbing. Obviously got the jersey unzipped to maximize cooling. The group ahead actually are not even going that fast, which was surprising. I actually managed to catch up with them quite quickly after about a couple of minutes. These guys obviously went out way too hard and are just struggling, so I managed to pass quite a lot of them, which surprised me quite a lot. Clearly my training has been paying off. But lots of these guys are doing the advanced route, so it's no surprise that they're not going as hard as I am. They probably have another 150 kilometers to go after this climb, whereas I've only got about 50. Skip forward a bit, about 15 minutes into the climb, about 1/3 of the way up. A few people went out ridiculously fast and I had no chance of keeping with those, but there's a nice group up ahead of me and I'm trying to pick them off one by one. At this point, I realized that my heart rate monitor was giving me some proper weird readings. Later on, it does actually run out of battery completely, but even at this point, I'm beginning to think that these numbers are not right. I've been climbing at about 300 watts for a good 15 minutes. My heart rate should not be 156, probably more about 170. In a way, it was quite nice not having the heart rate data. I was just pushing myself based on power. If I knew my heart rate was really high, I might have backed off, but I managed to keep it going quite well throughout this climb, I think. So skip forward again, over halfway up the climb now. These two guys ahead of me, I've been chasing them down for ages, just been trying to close the distance ever so gradually, and eventually I managed to pull up alongside them, which is quite nice. It's good to know that even towards the end of the climb, I'm still managing to catch up with people. So around this point it sort of levels out a bit. It goes up to about 8% and then there's a slight descent here. So I use this point to try and rest a tiny bit, coast a bit, lower the watts and just get a small rest in. But quickly the gradient obviously does come back. We cross this little bridge and then it gets really steep. This is where it is horrible, 10% plus. And the guy I'm following here on the right hand side, he has had enough. This is when he cracks and can't keep up with me and the blue guy. So yeah, it's never nice for that to happen, but I'm just happy it didn't happen to me for once. So I carry on just trying to keep up with this guy in front again, and he sets a nice pace. I'm pretty happy following him, keeping it around 300 watts, which is just what I want. Eventually it gets to this really horrible point. This is when the road goes from like 4% all the way up to 10%, almost at points it's like 15%. This is where I really wish I had some more gears. I've got a 1-to-1 ratio, but it's just not quite enough here. I've really got to properly dig in at this point. On the upside, the guy to the right of me is also struggling quite a lot. You can see it on his face, he's just digging really deep. I have to put up like 400 watts here just to keep up with him, and everything is in pain. There's only about 100 more meters of ascent to go. It's really the last parts of this climb, but the struggle is real. Yeah, like I said, running out of gears, having to put down 500 watts here just to keep it spinning at like 90 RPM. I'm trying to keep myself in the saddle. I don't want to get up and really sprint for it. I'm trying to keep it smooth and optimized, but then I do eventually give up and have to get out of the saddle just to get up this bit. It is just absolutely horrible at this point. I am really digging deep. But fortunately, the guy in blue is also suffering, and at this point he just has had enough by the looks of it as well. He's got a little rubber duck on his stem there, which is quite cute, but that doesn't help him when I decide to put the power down. Nah, just kidding. I'm clearly willing to push a bit more than him, I think. He just gives up at this point and has had enough. Gets out his phone, probably to tell all his friends that he got dropped by a really fat guy, so yeah. Alright, let's carry on. So in the very distance, there's one more guy that I'm going to try and close down. Not much more climbing to go, maybe like 10 more minutes. So I managed to keep the power up, trying to keep it above 300 for the rest of this climb. It does flatten out for bits, and when it flattens out, it's a bit hard just to keep the power going. But by the time I do eventually get to the top, I do close him down, which is pretty nice. I was very happy with this climb actually. It took me 37 minutes and I averaged 296 watts with a normalized power of 316, which was much higher than I ever expected, especially considering how hard the start of this race was. So at the top of the climb, we've got to dismount to go through this gate, which is a bit annoying. It'd be nice to just ride through, but what can you do? So I'll take this as a quick opportunity to zip up my jersey and head onto the descent. There's a quick bit of flat, but before long, it is a nice, cool, relaxing descent. Not trying to break any records or anything here, but the combination of being quite heavy and some pretty steep descents means I can easily get up to about 60 kilometers an hour, which is quite scary when there's cars coming the opposite way. I'm definitely always making sure my hands are on the brakes because I don't want to be zooming around these corners out of control. So we reach the bottom, it's a pretty quick descent, and then we're onto a nice long bit of flat. I am with a group at this point, so everyone's taking it pretty easily. So it doesn't last very long before these guys all head off straight and I turn off onto the right. These guys are all doing the advanced route, so they've got like 150 more kilometers to go, whereas I turn off and only have 50k to go. So it was nice riding with them for a while, but now I am solo till the end pretty much. At this point, I do not know how I'm doing. I don't know if I'm in first, I'm in last. Well, I assume I'm not in last because I overtook a lot of people on the hill. So yeah, it's pretty nice riding with people, but now I'm on my own and I've just got to take the wind and push through. So the next 20 or so kilometers are pretty uneventful. I'm just on my own, doing my own thing. I did get lost a few times because the route is a bit confusing. So 65 kilometers in, almost 3 hours into the race now, and we're approaching the final difficult bit. This is a section of rolling hills for about 10 kilometers. Not looking forward to this, especially with the miles I've already got in my legs, but I'm just trying to force myself over here, trying to average about 300 watts for each of the uphills. I know these shouldn't take too long, so I'm hoping I can just about manage that. This part of the route is really nice actually. We turn off the public roads onto a cycle path and it is just empty. No one around here for miles, just me and the bike, which is very, very peaceful. Much nicer than being next to all the cars for sure. So this section is actually very nice. It's just lots of ups and downs. It does get very steep at some points, like here it's getting up to 16-17%, which is way beyond my gearing. I'm having to crank at like 60 RPM, which is not ideal. I do come across another cyclist, no idea if she's in our race, but this is a pretty popular place for cyclists, so probably not. So on the last descent on this rolling section, it was a bit dodgy. There were lots of people walking up, so you have to be very careful here. Can't go shooting around these corners in case you might hit like a kid or something, so definitely don't want to be doing that. Eventually the smooth tarmac changes into this gravel type stuff, which isn't very nice. I'm a bit worried about my tyres. I don't really want to get a puncture. So yeah, this is almost the end of the race actually, and this is where my camera runs out of battery. So yeah, I've got to get over this gravel bit, and then we are on to the last 10-15 kilometers or so off flat. To be honest, not much really happens in that section. I'm just trying to give it my all till the end. So yeah, no footage of that, but this is me at the finish line. I tried to push quite hard on the last flat section, but my legs were actually starting to cramp up, so it wasn't ideal. By the finish line, I felt like I'd put in my maximum effort, so I was very happy with that. It turned out I didn't actually win. There was a group that finished about half an hour ahead of me, which is a bit of a shame. They ended up getting a big lead on the hill, and that was that. I definitely couldn't keep up with them, but I came about 4th out of about 20 people, so I was pretty happy with that overall. So these are my total stats from Strava after the ride. Moving time 3 hours and 46 minutes, elapsed time 3 hours and 59 minutes, so about 14 minutes of just sitting still like at traffic lights and stuff. Overall, my power was 183 for almost 4 hours, which isn't too bad. Normalized power is pretty impressive, I think. 249 watts, not too shabby at all. So you can see halfway through my heart rate sensor just gave up completely, so I didn't get any of that data, which was a bit annoying. My average speed was 24.2 for a hilly course. It's not that bad, I don't think. Most of that was just ruined by that huge climb where I was going like 10 kilometers an hour for 40 odd minutes. Total elevation gain was about 1,260 meters, so a bit less than the route plan suggested, about 100 meters less in fact. Not sure why that was. So this bit here is just showing the first 8 or so minutes of this race, which was pretty intense, just going straight up a hill. And for that first 8 minutes I did normalized power of 346, which is way too much. I would have liked to make a much easier start than that, and you can see how high my heart rate went up to about 170, so it wasn't ideal. And this bit is for the main climb. So this took me 37 minutes and 32 seconds. My normalized power for that was 316 watts, which is pretty impressive, I must say, for myself. My Garmin did actually give me a new FTP after this of 307 watts, so it went up by like 5 watts, so I was pretty happy altogether. I was a bit annoyed the heart rate sensor died. I would have liked to know how hard I was really pushing by the top of that climb, but you can see by my face that I was deep into the red. Alright, so it's a few days after now, so I just want to discuss how I think it went. I feel like overall I pushed as hard as I could. I don't think there's much I would have changed, to be honest, except by being more fit, but that's obviously a long-term thing. In terms of nutrition and hydration, I think I did it pretty well. I ended the race with 1 gel left. So I finished all my water, and by the end I was cramping still, so maybe I needed a tiny bit more, but that's just something you learn from experience. I do feel like I overconsumed in terms of calories, but I think it was worth it because the next day I didn't feel so bad really. I had to ride back home from the hotel, and that ride was about an hour, and to be honest, I wouldn't say my legs felt fresh, but they didn't feel bad. So yeah, overall I'm pretty happy with how it went. I feel like I prepared quite well, and it was definitely a fun experience. I'll definitely be getting into more of these in the future, I think. So that's it for this one. If you enjoyed it, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one. Alright, peace out.